Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Now, I usually declare off the top, if you watch, that this is where right and left come to be reasonable. But a friend pointed something out today that makes sense. Why am I playing into there being sides? The sides are the problem because they're no longer about ideology. They have become about toxic identity. They are all about and only about why one is worse. So, as our first president reminded as he was leaving office, our first principle is that we are a nation. We are Americans. That is all. I will no longer appeal to those identities because I want them to die. And as an American, we have artificial divisions, exaggerated divisions, but natural and authentic shared concerns. And we often, in fact, more often than not, the majority sees things the same way. The administration can say Renee Good was a domestic terrorist, but we're not buying it. And the way ICE agents have been abused in their deployment as a marauding horde, and the way some agents, because of poor training or poor character or both, have abused fellow Americans and treated people who perhaps committed a misdemeanor as monsters, now this policy, this agency, is being rejected by Americans. For the first time, more Americans support abolishing ICE than who oppose that idea. 46% support, 43% oppose. And it's not just Democrats. It's nearly half of independents, even 1 in 7 Republicans. Remember what the right has excused from this president and his administration. And that number gets more impressive. This is way up from last year when it was only 27% of Americans wanted this. Now, the phrase abolish ICE is vague. Can also mean defunding ICE. And given that ICE has a larger budget than the entire military budget for Israel, defunding isn't necessarily a radical idea like defund the police. Now, look, I don't think the sentiment reflects, nor do I support the idea of no ICE, no enforcement of illegal entry or illegal entrance in this country. I don't accept that. I don't support it. And I don't think that that's this message. The message is that when you hear that the extra money for ICE went to hiring people who are the least trained, least vetted, and perhaps least qualified in law enforcement, and to send them places that communities do not want, to act in a way that would make Putin blush, no wonder Americans are growing more and more opposed to their tactics. About half of us say ICE is making America less safe. More than half say Trump has gone too far in how he is deporting immigrants, including, again, 1 in 8 Republicans. This is America. We are a nation of immigrants. This place was founded so that those who feared oppression could find a future. With that notion, FAFO. I think the cost of living is going to be the big problem for the administration in the midterms. But this popular rejection of what seems tyrannical, what seems mean for meanness' sake, could be the reason for a big midterm event. But the midterms are far away. And in our landscape, there's a new flashpoint every other day. So who knows? Just look at the latest. Reports now say Trump may attack Iran in the next 24 hours. The word is we're moving a carrier group from the South China Sea into Iranian waters. Even the way I just said that, Trump may attack. When is Congress going to take its power back? No one is talking about how Trump can legally justify striking Iran right now. Oh, but they're not good guys. And, oh, you know, they were involved in 9/11. That holds legally 24 years later? In something that's about protests and regime change, not about terrorism directed towards us? This isn't self-defense like Soleimani or like last year's nuclear strikes. These are bad people. They were part of 9/11, no question about it. But is that enough? Shouldn't it be debated? In both cases, you know, Soleimani and the nukes, Trump relied on Article 2 powers in a self-defense argument. I thought it was soft, but it wasn't opposed, right? I thought we were defending protesters in Iran. I thought that's what this was about. I thought that this was a push for regime change, which I favor, but President Trump campaigned against the idea of America being involved in things like this. Also, again, Iran ain't Venezuela. Retaliation is a risk. Just today, Iranian state TV issued a threat against Trump, airing footage of the assassination attempt he survived last year with a caption translated into English read, "This time, the bullet won't miss." Now, I got a word of advice. This kind of hot talk is absolutely going to work against Iran's interests. Trump is not the kind of guy to be measured in the face of that kind of insult. And that's why the U.S. is already evacuating personnel from the region, which seems to acknowledge that whatever Trump is thinking about doing could endanger troops and Americans there and here. I'm not saying that means don't help, don't do anything. But shouldn't it be debated? Shouldn't it be? Now, Congress may not be curious about these decisions, but we are. What would military action look like? Would we kill the supreme leader? Would we kill the commanders that are killing the protesters? Just now, we learned that this could be imminent. The questions are, can we do this? Should we do this? And what must we accomplish for the people there if we do this? Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.